They'll blanket you in Wi-Fi and profit off the radiation. Congregation collecting the people for that Satan. I keeps it blazing, cause I can read between the lines. I ain't blind, we unwind what they're really saying. Genetically modify what you're tasting. Loan you that cottage promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Programmed to crave the basics. Keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid. You're in debt for being born. Messengers are more than just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed, disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful for Wrens. Welcome to another radical episode of Rogue Ways, where all the Rogue Warriors come to remember what is most good, true, and beautiful in this world, while remaining extrasensorily aware of the evil and agendas surrounding us all. Tonight we are blessed to have on the show a man who was made for Rogue Ways, with a willingness to learn and practice revolutionary ways of righting the wrongs of the world and a grounded and practical approach to confronting the many-faceted evils that abound. He's here to save the world one piece of Orgone at a time. Mitch the Orgone donor, welcome to Rogue Ways, and how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing really well. Actually, I just want to make sure, because this is like I'm new to all of this, but I'm getting a two of you talking actually echo, so I just want to make sure that maybe I'm not doing something wrong.
I don't know why you would be getting that. If anybody in the chat is getting that, let me know. I have dealt with and battled audio issues for the entirety of this show, so I would not be surprised, but I'll wait for people in the chat to let me know if the audio is good or if it's reverberating like that.
All right.
And otherwise you
I'm
might
actually,
have...
You're getting a 2 for 1, because I can actually hear myself too. So
I was gonna say you might have YouTube open or something, and you might, because everyone else says it sounds good. Thanks guys for letting us know. So it is something. You might have like a tab open that you didn't know about or something.
You know what? Let me go ahead and I
you check
super
on that.
sincere apologies for that.
No worries.
So I'm gonna go ahead and double check my.
And I'm just gonna let everybody know while you're checking that the new book, All Endings Are Beginnings, is still available, obviously. Go grab a signed copy with an inscription to you directly from me. And you can also grab signed Curvivans Vitalis, and you can grab Earth, A Trough in Time, the sequel to signed Curvivans Vitalis. And I also have now available on the site an option to get all 3 at once, all my newest books that I keep in stock. My older ones you'll have to grab from Amazon, sorry. But those ones I've got here for you. A little note goes into each one as you purchase it. So if you buy all 3 at once, you would get 3 separate notes to you. And if you would like to tell me that they're for someone else, then just let me know in the notes when you purchase those, and I will inscribe it to that person instead of you. But the bundle is now available as an option. Instead of buying all 3 separately, you can get a little discount for getting all 3 at once. So go check those out in the shop and grab what is good for you and good for the world. I love the support I get from people. I love my people who support me on Locals. Of course, it's the best place to be. You can also do Subscribe Star. You can also just donate to the show to support the show. Or you can kick back a little tip on Rockfin or a little super chat on YouTube and show the love. I don't charge for any of this. It's all just out of the love of my heart. So if you find value here, I super appreciate any value you can share back. And now, Mitch, hopefully audio is better for you now.
The extra voices in my head have subsided, but
now you sound really weird to me.
I told you.
Yeah,
I honestly think, hey, let's do this.
I know how it goes. I've told people who are familiar with the show. Oh, it's way better. Way
better?
Yeah.
Okay. See, like I said, just audio, tech, anything. I mean, we're talking about artificial intelligence as part of this conversation, so nothing surprises me at this point. So yeah,
we're all with you. I seriously will have the exact settings perfect every single time, and then I come in and they're all different. I'm like, no one's even touched this computer but me. Screw you, AI. So yeah, we know.
But so I think all is good on this end. So cool. Yeah.
Well, Mitch, I always start with a pointless question of the episode, and for you, I was wondering, what is your favorite, weirdest, bug or animal that is abnormal that you like? Maybe not abnormal, but that isn't everyone's favorite.
I mean, Honestly, one that I think creeps out a lot of people that they criticize too much because of the reptilian stuff is the lizard.
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by them. They're in my garden. I play with them every day. They get trapped in my greenhouse, and I actually like enjoy when they get trapped in there because then I have to let them out. And so it's just funny because I've got this one who I know is pregnant, and every single time they see me, it's just like, oh, you again, because they know that they've dwindled or wandered into forbidden territory and whatever. So it's, yeah, that's, I would say that's probably my favorite.
That's so sweet. I love how lizards have this little thing they do where they're like,
Yep.
you know, they like
oh yeah, they get
that?
they get territorial with the push-ups or whatever, and I just kind of do
that's what
it
that
right
is.
back. So yeah,
That's cute. Give them a little nod.
yeah. So
that's awesome. Well, and I always like to ask people too, Mitch, as we get started, if you want to share with us just what your childhood was like. Were you the weird kid? Were you the wondrous kid? Or what was it like?
you know, I think I only have to say one sentence. I'm a middle child, and there's the answer to everything. So no, I wouldn't say so much weird. I think I had a late upbringing. Like a lot of people who I imagine maybe watching this, 2012. I mean, I was very asleep for a very long time, and things never made sense. And then I think it was about 2012 when a lot of things changed very quickly. Then 2016, it was like emotional train wreck changes. And then came 2020, which, it's finally to the point where I think a lot of people would agree. We've almost forgotten. I actually was thinking about this the other day. Everything like pre and post COVIDiocy, it's like a whole other timeline that I've just almost forgotten. And so, yeah, I guess I wouldn't even say I was a weird kid. I'd say I don't even remember really what kind of kid I was, but I feel more like a kid today doing this just because I have a lot of fun doing what it is we're going to talk about.
That's so interesting. Yeah, it's like feels like it's just another world, or like you said, another timeline or something, and it's hard to connect to sometimes, like what that was like, because things are so bizarre and so whacked out now.
And,
like it's crazy.
Yeah, and speeding up too. It's just every day, and especially I know as I've kind of been gearing up for our conversation, there's a lot that's gone on even just in the last 24 hours that I was going to put together a specific outline, and then I thought, we were conversing before, I was like, there's no. This is going to be the improv skills will come out because there's just so much going on right now, especially with Arizona, with the Southwest, and with the drought, our manufactured drought. So yeah, it's just there's so much going on to juggle right now that all these agendas throwing stuff at the wall, and they hope something will stick is what we're at. So
they're like, overwhelm them, just tell them everything, just throw everything, just like fuck with them and see what happens.
Yeah, pretty much. And things have been really quite since we got introduced. Actually, if I can take a second just to say like how we got introduced, through our mutual friend Chance over at hey Chance. That was really an interesting opportunity for me to talk about a lot of things that I don't normally get to talk about. And a lot of the stuff that came out of the woodwork since then, people who've communicated with me and said things they didn't know about, things like orgonite and orgone energy, or the real purpose behind it, because there are a lot of misconceptions about this stuff. And so the last month or so has just been overwhelming and positive. And so, yeah, it's just like, I'm just like, oh my God, I don't know where to start,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's so
awesome. I'm going to take that cue from you, actually. I guess that's what I was getting at is you just,
Well, you tell us, actually, how did you learn what orgone was and then get to be making it?
Yeah. So, I can't remember because I'm trying to think of like timeline wise. I just know that at one point in my life, like when I was looking up at the sky, and I think it had to do with like the moons. It had to do with a vacation we took to Costa Rica years and years back that I remember. It was on a full moon and it was on my partner's birthday. And I remember looking at the sky. We lived in Chicago at this time too. And I just remember thinking to myself, oh my God, this is so bright and so vivid and so just blatantly in my face. I was like, I don't remember the last time I saw this. And it just like jolted this memory that was like, something's wrong. Like, why have I not seen this for so many years? It's always there month after month. And so when we got back, I started doing some research, where I had always kind of, I mean, I would say probably since about 2012, where I was paying attention to the chemtrails, wasn't really sure what they were. Something didn't add up, something didn't seem right. But at the time, it's kind of like how a lot of people we see right now who we're like shaking them and saying like, wake up, wake up. And they like know something's wrong, but they refuse. They're just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so and so that's kind of how I felt. It was when we got back from vacation that I started looking at the patterns and taking pictures of the sky just daily, and finding these very weird patterns where things were happening during celestial events, during full moon, during sunrise and sunset. And that's where I was like, okay, there is an obviously intentional force here that is doing these things. And I was learning about energy, and I was learning about the Federal Reserve. That was, you want to learn about Organite, oddly enough, like go learn about the Federal Reserve, because once you learn about money and you learn about currency and you learn about the energy behind it, and then you learn, oh my God, everything in this entire universe it revolves around energy and frequency and vibration, just like, I'm probably rag on them later, but like we talk about the new age community, and it's like everything is frequency, energy, vibration. I don't even think they know exactly to the extent that that is true.
Absolutely.
And so in learning these things, yeah, it was like, okay, there's this terrible issue going on in the world. And oddly enough, one day I just simply did a Google search. I was like, how to stop chemtrails. And I was like, what the hell is this hockey puck? A hockey puck around a cell tower. This is like the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. And I went out on a adventure to prove it wrong. And little did I know that it would become my life.
Isn't that awesome? I love that people get to hear that perspective, because I think a lot of us start in that place too with most of the things that we have come to be like, oh, wow, that's actually what's going on here, is that exact attitude of like, this can't be true. I'm going to disprove it. And then being like,
yeah, I mean, it's, it's one thing to be a naysayer or a skeptic, but I value, even if people disagree with me, I tell people, like, I got into this because the person who taught me about it, they said, I tried to prove this wrong and it didn't work out the way I had expected. I did the same thing. One of my best friends now, who does a lot of what I do, she and I would just say we're like counterparts, and I hope she's watching. I can't tell right now, but my friend down in Alabama who's doing the same work that I am, and she was like, yeah, Mitch, I the same thing. I saw you doing this and I wanted to prove it wrong. Or I was like, I'm going to prove this wrong or be pleasantly surprised. And just like I was, we were both very pleasantly surprised. And so I value anybody that wants to go prove something wrong and admit that, oh, this didn't work out like I thought.
Yeah,
so,
I was really, we were talked about it just a second or two yesterday, and I was telling you about my friend Hannah, who might be watching now too, I'm not sure. But we lived in the same town, and we connected with each other, and she was going to show me all these cool hiking spots and swimming spots and whatever. So she's like, come on, I'll pick you up and we'll go, for a ride. And I was like, cool. So I hopped in her car and I was like, what's this thing on your roof or whatever? She's like, oh, it's like a cloud busting cannon. And I was like, oh, she's weird. But I'd heard of Reich before, and I'd heard of Orgone before, so I wasn't like too unfamiliar, but I was just like, I don't think this is really going to work. The whole time we were driving, all the clouds just, well, I should say the chemtrails, just gone, like in the direction that we're driving. I'm like, this is it's not a coincidence, it can't be. And so ever since then I've known for sure that Orgone does something. And so that's really fascinating too.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like I tell people, I'd have to look for the quote. I had quoted it in a previous discussion about Wilhelm Reich talking about proof. To those who might not, I imagine most people watching this have probably heard of Wilhelm Reich at this point.
I would think so.
To anyone who hasn't, he's the father of orgonomy. He's the person who coined the term. When you hear about the sexual energy and that the term is based on the orgasm because of the energy that's affiliated with sex, it's the energy of life.
Yeah.
But he had talked about proof in itself, that who is it to prove anything, that really the challenge of anything that you need to, instead of proving, is to really just persuade people in the pursuing of information, the pursuing of knowledge, because he said, the knowledge of tomorrow is going to be, it's going to rely only on those who are willing to seek it. And that, I get people all the time who are like, oh, they're very skeptic, some of them quite nasty. And, I tell people that, you have to go do this work. And when I say this work, I'm referring to the tower busting, where you're putting these orgonite devices around things like cell towers and around 5G towers, or like the earth pipe that I sent you. It's, which, by the way, put that near your near your electrical box. Or, well, actually, you know what? You mentioned you had quite a bit around your yard already.
A lot in my house
Yeah.
in general, yeah.
Yeah. So actually, you know what? I would say save it and extend the grid. Go,
Yeah,
use
I'm
your
gonna go out.
intuition. Yeah, I tell people all the time because they're like, yeah, I guess a lot of people, when they hear about these concepts and they get familiar with, like, oh, I can make a device that's going to shut down that tower, that's going to stop the geoengineering, that's going to stop the mind control frequencies, that's going to mitigate all the EMF. They overthink it. They always overthink it. And I understand why they do that, because we do that. We look for patterns. We look for everything. We're decoding. It's like, oh, Illuminati confirmed everywhere.
Yeah.
But I tell people, don't overthink it. Use your intuition. When you get a device, people are like, what do I get for my house? What do I put in here? And it's like, any device, as long as it's made right, is better than no device. And so for a house, I like the idea. I'm a rare case, like other people who make this stuff or gift this stuff. It's every square inch of my house. So I'm not, I mean, it's a rare exception, but get a piece for each one of your rooms. Put it near your Wi-Fi, which should be turned off and grounded anyway, but put it near your Wi-Fi, put it near your smart meter if you have one of those. Put it near where you sleep. A lot of people who are very skeptical about this, they'll be like, how can I prove any of this? And it's like, okay, well, we're talking about etheric energy. So one of the ways you can, at least if you want to test reaction, is we do this thing called the water test. And I want to actually, while I'm yakking, I want to pull up a picture here of that. The water test is essentially when you take a cup of water, preferably a plastic cup, because a glass cup may shatter. But you want to take a cup of water and you want to place it in the freezer with a piece of orgonite underneath of it. And
leave it in the water or under the glass?
Just underneath the cup. You can set it on top of. So like the tower buster, one of the tower busters is perfect because it's got a big enough flat edge that you can set a cup. You don't want to use glass, or in my experience, you don't want to use glass because you are probably going to shatter the glass when the vortex forms. But here, I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. I'm like so new to all this, so I apologize.
No, you're fine.
So let's see here. There we go. So this is an example of one of the water tests that I did. This is actually, I think, the first water test I did. So you get a vortex in the center of it, and
it's like a tornado.
Yeah, this one was more like a light bulb, but you see the needles, like the needles at the top. See if I can slow that down just a sec. It's you get like this crystallized structure. What you're essentially doing is structuring the water. And one of the things I came across when all this information was being thrown at me, I mean, I got a lot of information in a short amount of time, and I was blessed in a job, a daily career field, that I was basically like my own boss. So I spent 8 hours a day just researching stuff when I probably should have been doing other things. But
whatever.
one of those things was learning about Dr. Masaru Emoto.
Yeah.
And when you learn about his work with restructuring water and the consciousness that's behind it, and then you connect it to what's going on with these energy fields, with orgone, with life energy, this is essentially, I'm at a point where I'm wholeheartedly convinced. I'm going to go ahead and switch out of this here. I'm going to go ahead and there we go. Is that right? Good?
Yeah, we're back to normal. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm convinced that because the world, the planet, is primarily water, and with what I'm seeing where these towers are going, there's a lot of them that are in places that don't make sense. But if you look closely and you research like watersheds and reservoirs and aquifers and all that stuff, there's water underneath of these towers, and they're using the water to magnify the energy. So
that makes way too much sense.
It's even like, I mean, even when you see them like on a water tower, a lot of people, I think that's more just disguised. for the sake of disguise, like, oh, it's a water tower, but the water towers are connected to bodies of water under the ground. It's not like just a single tower of water filled with water that's like filled with the, garden hose or whatever up to the top. So I've been telling people too, as we see all these agendas progressing, and this isn't meant to be doom and gloom. It's simply meant to call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
When the water, or if the water shortages ever happen, go to your nearest cell phone tower and start digging, because I'd place a pretty large wager that you're going to find water under there. And they're trying to change this water. They're trying to destructure this water, because essentially a lot of water is dead by the time that we've consumed it, and it's not benefiting our DNA. And I don't want to get into like too many tangents, because I know we're primarily talking about orgone energy and then like the tower busting, but all of these things are connected to consciousness. All these things are connected to, like I have, like a lot of people, figured out the next steps of the COVID thing, or the poison dart and all of that stuff, because it's all about slowing down the advancement of our consciousness. And when you look at things like this energy and what you're doing when you reestablish these energy fields around all of these towers, these are not for cell phones. These are not for communication. These are primarily an energetic weapon. And that weapon is used for a multitude of things, many of them including the Geo Engineering agenda, but primarily consciousness suppression, because human beings are waking up. Everybody, we all know this. Everybody's waking up, and they need to put us back to sleep, and it ain't working fast enough. And so, as you get into this stuff, really, when you play with Orgonite and you start busting these towers, watch what happens, not only to the sky or to the rain clouds, but watch what happens to the people who live within the vicinity of those areas. And as assuming you're willing to take the time to experiment with it, you're going to see the same things that I see, the same things that my friends who do the same thing see. You notice a shift. You see the mind fog disappear, or you see clarity in a lot of things. So, it might have been a coincidence, but when I started playing around with it in Chicago, and, every morning on the train, people stopped being assholes to me. I don't know if it was a coincidence or what, but I always felt like there was this energy field that was changing a lot of things. And then, after gifting the subway tunnels and putting it all over the CTA, things were different. The energy was different. So
that's so powerful and cool. There's all these days where a lot of us in this community will be talking with each other, and we'll be saying, especially if you're in the same area, you can kind of notice, like, why are we so angry today all of a sudden? Like, where all of us are just angry. Well, like, clearly, and we know they have this technology that they can beam out. EMF can control and affect mood and thoughts, and, like you said, brain fog and all these things. And so to be able to disrupt that is very powerful, especially like you were talking about with Masaru Emoto and these things where we know our consciousness affects reality directly and physical reality directly. Then if our consciousness is clear and pure and uplifted and intentionally directed, well, how powerful is that? And I have people who, that I work with in various ways, spiritually and otherwise, and they're saying, like, well, how can I get blessed water? And I'm like, well, you bless it. You just bless it. Like, look at, and Masaru Emoto is the perfect example of that, right? Like, if you're holding this water and you affect it, and that's one of the strongest pieces, is that you do. If you just don't really know, but you're like happy, like, it's going to affect it. And if you don't really know and you're angry, it's going to affect it. But if you know you're affecting it and you're intentionally doing it with a very specific intention, that's blessed water. You can do this. Anybody can do this themselves. So if we were all in that mindset, clear and pure and free of this outside interference, no wonder they want to stop that, right? We were talking too recently about how orgone, chi, ether, there's all these words for this substance that is just everywhere in the universe. All these traditions recognize it, has all these different words, but it's the same stuff, right? So let's get into the orgone itself. What is it, and how do you do it? And then I want to tell a really cool story about someone. I actually told it earlier today too, but I'll wait a little bit after you describe it.
So essentially, orgone energy it's the energy of life. It permeates everything. It travels. It's been explained as traveling in a scalar wave or a fractal pattern. It is communicating with life, all life. And there are, if you research things like Wilhelm Reich, and you read his books like either Ether, God, and Devil, Contact with Space, he talks about how there is this energy, this bioelectrical charge that essentially runs through all of life. There is, on the flip side, an anti-life energy, which has a name. We call it deadly orgone radiation. That was a term he coined. It's not orgone. And a lot of people, one of the misconceptions in the orgone community, you'll hear some people, this is how I smell a rat when I smell one, is they use the word POR, positive orgone radiation. And then there's DOR, deadly orgone radiation. Wilhelm Reich talked about it's OR, just OR, orgone, and that's orgone. And then you've got DOR, which really wasn't the best term I think he could have used. But this life energy is essentially passing through everything. It's what keeps everything in balance. And when you look at things like, what the towers are doing, what is being done to us on a genetic modification level, with our DNA, with a certain mRNA, like I said, the poison dart, there's something trying to shut off our ability to communicate with and to benefit from this energy. And so one of those things is essentially these towers that we're flipping them back so that it's this natural energy that really orgonite in itself is an orgone generator as long as you've made it properly. It's that composition of the resin and the metals. You want to make sure you use enough metal where it's like 50% or roughly 50% of the device is metal, because you've got like this energy is attracted to and repelled by different things. It's attracted to it's attracted to organic substances, to carbon-based substances. So like we are receiving this information all the time. Then you can repel this energy with inorganic material like the metals. In a piece of orgonite will have, when I say metal, it means like metal shavings, like little pieces of metal, because you're essentially it's like you need the energy to be able to pass through with this push pull between everything. So surface area is very important. The smaller the molecule of metal, the stronger your orgonite's going to be, which is why it's really great to put powder, different types of metal powders. Steel, I use a lot of steel powder, and I think that one also has like black iron oxide, and then aluminum shavings. And then you put quartz inside because, quartz has two different features of either a piezoelectric effect, where it sends out this signal, this orgone charge when it has pressure applied to it. And then it's also pyroelectric, where the same effect happens from heat. And the heat, with orgonite, like orgonite does get very hot as the resin cures, so it's temporary in that sense. But the reason we use the resin is because it compresses, and so it's applying just a little tiny bit of pressure there on that as well. The crystal is restructuring the energy field. Everything else is acting sort of like a scrubber sponge. You throw it into an energy field, and so as that energy field gets attracted to it, and it gets spit back out restructured. So once you throw enough of this around a cell phone tower, you're turning that cell phone tower into a positive energy generator, not just like deleting the cell phone tower.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. And I mean, it takes a little bit, like there are some people, and this is a misconception, I'm probably going to like get in trouble for ranting a little too much, but there are some people, there's some people who I'm like off on my own. I've got my friend, like I said, in Alabama, and like a whole group of people under the radar that we can all bitch about certain things together, where we don't maybe mesh with other orgonite folk. But there's a lot of people who think, you put one of these around a cell phone tower. That's not true. You need at least, I would say at least 2, but I would say preferably 3. For me, because I make it and I have this production line for myself that I've made efficient, I do about 4. Or in the case of like an earth pipe, like what you've got there, I would plant one of those at a cell phone tower. Yeah. And we have different ways of doing it. I don't know if I don't want to get like all over the place, but if you don't care, I can explain too, like how people ask a lot how to gift, or what do you mean by gifting, busting the tower?
Yeah.
So like I want to use yesterday as an example. Yesterday, my counterpart and I, we drove up to, there are these certain towers, and I'm going to pull one up here just to show you. There are these certain towers out there that are called Nexrad towers, and if you're not familiar with Nexrad, it means next generation radar. And people think of them as Doppler radar. Some people call them weather balls. Some people, I mean, people see, I get messages from people all the time once I started talking about them more, and they're like, "Hey, Mitch, I got one of these here." And it's like there are roughly 160, so they say, in the United States. And they say there are 4 of them in Arizona, but there's more. We found more by accident. And yesterday, my partner and I went up into the forest between Flagstaff and Payson to gift this. And I'm going to go ahead, if you don't mind, I'm going to show you what a Nexrad looks like.
Yes.
So, okay, did I do that right?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah,
oh, did I?
I see a big tower with a big ball on top.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've seen these floating around out in the ocean, but I've never seen one on land.
Yeah.
These are out there. Wow.
Yep. If you find, and to anyone watching this, if you find these, please, for the love of God, please go bust these. Go gift these. These are the bread and butter in my view of the geoengineering agenda, and everything that is in between, meaning like the cell phone towers, the smart meters on the houses, the 5G being put up. That is all meant to fill in the gaps and connect that web. But yesterday we went and we had to venture to this because there are some fires going on around here. I will tell people, if you don't live here, please don't pretend to know you know what you're talking about. They're not as bad as people say, and they're being made to look worse than they are through the ionization of the environment, because the smoke, the positively charged particles of smoke, are sticking to the electrosmog, what we call the DOR. And what it does is it magnifies this effect.
That's why I hate it so much.
It
like drives me insane. Okay.
It looks like it's basically bigger and worse than it's supposed to be. They're merging the electrosmog with the smoke and making it look 10 times worse than it actually is. But so we got to this road and we were going through, it was, like I said, this was up towards kind of between Payson and Flagstaff. And we were of course turned away by the sheriff because they blocked the road. So I was very discouraged and pissed off. And my counterpart was like, well, we're not done yet. And so we ventured out the other way, walked through the forest for what seemed like 2 hours, and got to this area with, a backpack of stuff and just burying as many earth pipes. And I made these pyramids these are, I don't talk about these too much with the name because we call it an HHG. It stands for Holy Hand Grenade. And that is not, it's not a weapon. Yeah. It's not a weapon. But they have... you
gotta inject that joy where you can.
I think people in the Orgone community, they talk about that word coming from the Monty Python.
Monty Python. Oh, you don't even know?
Sorry.
Dude, no, you just have to search.
Oh God, do I have to?
Just have to search for a Holy Hand Grenade and watch like 2 minutes. It's hilarious. Okay.
All right. Well, the gentleman, the gentleman, bless his soul. His name was Doncroft, and he was the guy who invented the Orgonite gifting movement. And he was gifting with his wife Carol, who she's still around. He unfortunately deceased, I think, and he passed away in 2019. He was a very odd bird. But he started this idea of like putting this stuff around the towers, and they were doing this back when we were little, and they knew what was going on with these towers going up as soon as they started going up. And so anyway, they created this device that just it's a certain formation of crystals that shoot out the points of either a cone or a pyramid. There's some geometry with pyramids. If you go to my website, it's again, there's so much about this that is so connected to the energy. One of those things being the geometric shape of pyramids, why pyramids do certain things, why people are making Orgonite into the shape of pyramids. And so the energy signature from that and the formation, like just the recipe for it, it's just meant to handle a lot of towers. So anyway, long story short is we went up to this weather ball, this Nexrad tower, and just annihilated it. And today, finally, after 3 weeks of 104 degrees, it dropped. I looked at the temperature today, the forecast today, and the collective temperature all over Arizona dropped approximately 10 degrees.
Woo-hoo.
And Yeah. So tomorrow, I think it said it was. I mean, and granted, you have to take the forecast with a grain of salt because it's all a lie and it's all
Yeah.
based on
What they
predictive
plan.
programming. Yeah, they call it the forecast because they're spell casting what it's going to be, and our energy affects that, which is why I'm very, very. I'm on a campaign right now. Uh, I've become very vocal lately about the people. I call them the fear porn stars, and there are two of them that you can read about on my website. I won't, or on my Instagram post lately. I won't mention it now, but basically anybody who spreads the fear of this stuff about the fires, or they talk about DEWs, direct energy weapons, and all that stuff. And they know very well that there is a solution to this, and they don't do a damn thing about it, and they won't talk about it. And when I try to talk to them about it or try to help, they block me and they want nothing to do with it. And then they go on selling their detox products, and I'm just like, all right, there's some people that are afraid of solutions.
Well,
They want they
yeah.
want band-aids. So
And there's the people who are like, if you're not freaking out and screaming about this, you must not understand it. So let me give you even more information. You're like, no, I get it. Like, I know I have found a way to like live in my power and try and do what I can instead of like just sitting here dying slowly and freaking out the whole time. That's not effective to me. So
yeah,
I really appreciate that you're solution oriented and that you actually go out and get things done.
I'm trying. A lot of it is I think a lot of it's my pride and my ego. There is something about my personality that's I've always been. I have to, like, I wanted to prove it wrong in this case. I have a point to prove, and I won't be satisfied until I've proven it. I have proven, based on what the work we did in Chicago and some work we actually did back in my home state of Nebraska. We took a lot of this stuff to Nebraska before, just between the point where we moved here to Sedona, and caused all kinds of flooding because there was rain that was shut off. And I was quite proud to cancel the first Nebraska Cornhusker football game in like 80 years. I went to school. I went to school there, and I really don't. I'm not a fan, but I felt validated because we put a bunch of the chem busters around the big we call them the big guns or the cannons, and just gifted and busted a bunch of towers. But the work we've done, like it's sort of like we had completed a lot. I was able to talk every day really for a long time about like, oh, look what we've been working on, look what we've done. When I say we, I mean my counterpart. He, most of the time it's mostly just up to me, like he helps gift. But once the Wuhan wiggle began, they unleashed the 5G network, and by doing that, it slowed down a lot of the work that those of us busting these towers were doing. I've got a friend in Mesa who, we've all heard about like where they were putting the towers on schools when everybody was in lockdown, and it was very odd. And you'd see the occasional Instagram video, like there were maybe police officers around or private security, and it's like, what the hell is going on? And a friend of mine in Mesa had mentioned that, and he was talking about how he and other folks he knew there, everybody was asking, everyone noticed, and everybody was like, and no one could get any answers to it. And so it was really interesting to hear it more than just from somebody on an email or whatever, just to hear it firsthand from somebody that I knew. I got a lot of emails during March and April of 2020 from parents that were all freaking out because they were like, Mitch, what the hell's going on? This showed up on my kid's school. And I'm like, well, you better get to busting, and it just, because of that, it's been a lot harder this year to do all of this work. I'm determined, but like I said, it's why people think I'm nuts, because of the amount of effort, the time, the money, the energy that I exert to do this. And I'm doing it. I mean, I'm doing this just simply because like I don't want to live in the matrix.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in a world that's not based on truth. And I'm very much I would say I'm very anti love and light. I don't want love and light. I want the truth.
Yeah.
And once the truth happens, the love and light, if it's natural love and light and it's true, it will fall into place. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I don't want that fake love and light bullshit.
We're
So
very much with you here in this community. You know, I do a show on Thursdays called Middle Path, and that's like the whole point of the show is like, okay, I'm done with this bullshit where people are like, oh, and there's fairies, and that maybe there's fairies, I don't care, but like, what are we actually gonna do? What does it actually matter? How does it affect your life right here? What are you gonna actually do with it all? And then, and especially this idea that somehow you should be so love and light that you let people like walk all over you or treat you like shit or get away with things or not take responsibility for themselves. I'm like, this is not doing anyone any favors. We're not going this route. Like, there's somewhere in the middle of all of that where we do have love and light, and we do understand this Orgone energy of the universe is everywhere, and we do want to use it and channel it, and we do want to help the world get better. We also want to take no shit from nobody.
Exactly.
And you know,
I think it was I listened to this one guy who I enjoy his work a lot. His name's Tony Sayers. He does a lot of he talks a lot about like new age deception and the idea of everything being rainbows and unicorns and how that's just meant to distract. And I had
it's
mentioned,
like a drug.
yeah,
you're like, yeah, that feels good, let's do that.
and I I know a lot of people would say that I know I piss off a lot of people. I lose followers as fast as I get them on Instagram.
Bye.
That's I've gotten to that point. I told my counterpart today, I said, I'm going to talk to her about this today. And it's like I'm in this predicament with these tools. Like we live in the third dimension. We have three-dimensional problems that need three-dimensional solutions. And the rule is really, I believe it's do no harm, but take no shit.
Yeah.
And with that, I am currently battling. I've said before, I live in the mecca of the New Age community. Sedona, Mount Shasta, I think Taos, New Mexico can kind of fall in there too. I know there's more. Those are the three I know of off the top of my head because I used to get enveloped into that crap too. But here in Sedona, I've joked that you can't throw a tower buster without hitting somebody else that sells Orgonite. And you can't go to a crystal store without finding it just packed to the brim on the walls or along the shelves. And I am very vocal about saying that it's all crap. And the reason I say that is because it's not made properly. It's all commercialized. It's not being explained properly.
Yeah.
Well, I actually, we had a brief chat just last night to kind of run through a couple things. And I wanted, for my own satisfaction, I wanted to go and look at the people who contacted me since the last time I had an interview. And so over the last month, I counted up everybody who, with a keyword that was talking about the purpose behind Orgonite. And I found that 122 people contacted me in the last month, specifically regarding the subject of, I didn't know Orgonite was supposed to be put around cell phone towers. They'd heard about it, they knew about it, and so it was incredibly frustrating to me, and it's why I am as vocal as I am about what I call deceptive, just like there's a very deceptive thing about this energy, because once you realize what this energy can do and how to neutralize what's the anti-energy of this energy, the matrix is going to crumble. The artificial intelligence is going to crumble. The agendas, the mind control, all of it. And it's a very bad thing. And it's hard to get it's hard to get a very big following. I get harassed all the time. I have my own shills and bots and trolls and whatever. But within that community, I mean, really it's not, but the Orgone community, there's so much bickering and infighting. It's like I gravitate towards people that I trust, that we all have this path where we're just kind of focused, just make the stuff, bust the towers, get the job done, and go about our way. And and we learn new things all the time. We constantly, I mean, there are some of us that we chat all day, every day, and compare notes. But yeah, there's this deception, and I'm very vocal about it now because I don't want people buying these things. I mean, people send me emails all the time. They're like, Mitch, can you look at this device? And they show me, and it's a godforsaken rainbow pyramid that's just a bunch of rocks encased in plastic, and then they spent like $80 on it. And I'm like, sorry, dude. It's no. I mean, as far as they're pretty, but as far as combating the problem of EMF and all the purpose of this stuff, I'm sorry, you got had.
Well,
And it,
yeah.
yeah,
I've had
yeah,
people tell me too, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna make orgone. What is orgone? I've heard of like whatever. I look, I'm like, okay, it's organic, inorganic, organic, inorganic. That's the basics of orgone, right?
hmm
And then maybe quartz crystal and some of the things you're talking about would make mine even better, right? But so I make that, and people are like, that's not orgone. I'm like, oh, it's not? And they're like, no, it doesn't. It has to have this. It has to have that. And I'm like, but isn't it just organic, inorganic, organic, inorganic? They're like,
it's
what is that? What are
yeah.
you even talking about? I'm like, I'm talking about the guy who like was the guy who like said this is what it is. Like he's the one telling you like how to do this. You could go out right now and put like a rock and a cotton pile on top of that, and then like a thing of
Oh
metal,
yeah.
and then like a tree, and then like, and that'd be an orgone accumulator. And it's not the best one you can make, but that's like orgone. And so it's interesting too that like a lot of people who make it don't know who Reich is, and they don't know that basic like formula of it, which is very interesting. And maybe you can talk
Yeah.
to, I think you already mentioned a really good point about it, but I don't know if there's any more where people say, oh, and if you're using these resins, then you're doing it wrong because they're not organic or they're like plastic. And I'm like, yeah, but one of the components of this is
Yeah.
inorganic. So isn't that okay?
So, newsflash to certain people that are very there's a campaign. This is actually one of the hurdles we have now had in 2021 with all the other bullshit. It's the anti-resin brigade, and there are it's because people have figured this out. And they need to. I mean, we're destroying their towers, and they need to stop it
Yeah.
immediately.
So they have this little
And
planned
so
opposition
yeah,
planted
so
in.
of all the bullshit, one of those things is the anti-resin brigade, and there are the reason we use resin. There are several reasons. First of all, the most simplistic one is you need some kind of a composite that's going to withstand all of the elements because
Yeah.
you are putting this stuff outside. You're burying this stuff. You need it to last because those towers are not going anywhere, at least right now.
Not yet.
So as long as this agenda is happening, you need something that's going to withstand the ability to sit there where it needs to sit and combat the EMF coming from that tower. The issue with resin, I mean, it comes from oil. Oil is a life form. It
True.
is derived. It is the blood of the planet, and I will tell you, I guarantee you, it is infinite. And anyone who tells you that there's a shortage or that it comes from dinosaurs needs to get their head checked.
Liars.
But yeah, like everything else, it's an inversion perversion of how reality really is. There is no shortage of energy or any resources on this planet,
That's right.
especially water and especially oil.
That's
But
right.
the resin, because it comes from chemical, I mean, it's a chemical. It's when you use it, there's fumes. So of course people they freak out with that. And I would just say, well, if you have a problem with this, please get rid of your computer, get rid of your phone, get rid of your car, get rid of your house.
And stop
Um,
farting.
and yeah. But so there are different types of resins you can use. Some are plant-based or more plant-based that have lower VOCs. You are going to spend a fortune doing that, and I will tell you, I use two kinds, and I'm not actually going to say one of the kinds I use because I found every time I share that information, the company magically stops selling it. So I'm currently using one that is a clear it's a clear type of casting resin, and it's used for things like trophies or awards. It's like what you'd have for a clear or butterfly collection, a coin collection, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So that's how you manage to get these kinds of things encased where you can see through.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's got low VOCs, whatever. It's we take precautions. You wear gloves. You use a respirator. You do it outside. It's no different than painting your house or any other outdoor activity like that. You can also then use things like Bondo fiberglass resin. That is fantastic for two purposes. It's incredible. It's the least expensive, and it's the most. It's easiest to find. I can't think of the word right now. What am I trying to think? But it's easily accessible. Excuse me. And so, they both work great. You can also use things like Easy Cast, which is a clear casting resin that is plant-based, and you can also use something called Ecopoxy, which is plant-based. Plastic is plastic is plastic. So I'm going to tell you, to anyone, like, if you're these people that are on this tirade about the resin, it's become a thing, and it really is funny to some of us because we know why it's happening. Somebody comes out of the woodwork and is pushing this idea, and I've actually now seen TikTok videos all over the place, just like the fake snowstorm that wasn't, or it wasn't really fake, but when Texas had the snowstorm, the TikTok videos came out and everybody ran with it, like burning snowballs because they don't understand how snow actually can burn. Or the dancing nurses last year that weren't really nurses, that was meant to confuse, and it was a psyop. This is the same thing. There's now videos of people that are just ragging on resin, and some of us know why, because we're making a device out of this stuff that destroys this agenda. And it sounds more I mean, it is pretty simplistic when you think about it. But yeah, it's a tool that they don't want people figuring out how to make this properly. That's also a reason why there's so much bad orgonite, or what we call orgonaut, because it's not made correctly. Yeah. So, but yeah, there's been a lot of pushback with the resin stuff. You can also make orgonite out of a few other materials like beeswax. Beeswax is obviously an organic compound. The problem with that, I know if you're at least on this side of I would say this side of Canada right now, you probably aren't going to be able to bust any towers with something made out of beeswax because of the temperature outside. So it's not feasible. It's incredibly expensive. I know some people who, they might make pieces for themselves, something they might put by their bedside or whatever. That's one thing, but like I said, you need something that's going to be made it's virtually indestructible. Yeah. And so buck it up.
Which leads me to this story, which I just find fascinating. And so I always tell people, and I've maybe even said it in this episode, and so forgive me if I have, but I tell people, like, I make this Orgo and I do it because I was led to and guided to do it, and because it's beautiful and I love it. I put these intentions into it, and there's spiritual energy, and Orgone is spiritual energy. And so my intention is that people get this and use it as a personal, spiritual, energetic enhancement tool. They're tiny, they're little pendants that you can wear, right? And so I also make these earrings, and I love the earrings the most because they don't always come out very well, and so when they do, they're like really cool. And so somebody had bought the pair of these earrings, and the earrings, I'll add this, and maybe you can touch on this when I'm done, is that they have a twisting coil of organic, inorganic, organic, all coiled together in a spiral shape that goes down the length of the earring. So I think that enhances it. So anyway, this person was wearing these earrings, and they heard and felt this really strong energy come at them from one side, specifically towards their head. They heard a high-pitched ringing, and they stopped and noticed it, and the earring snapped in half and fell off of their head, which this is, what this is made of. Even a tiny thin piece does not break easily. So that blew my mind. First of all, that it seems like it deflected whatever was coming at her, and that the Orgone like absorbed it and shattered because of it or something. It kind of trips me out. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on that and on the coiling effect.
Yeah. So there is a lot with when you make coils out of certain things. Energy, like real positive energy, like these fractal patterns, from what I've gathered, they are moving in a clockwise rotation, and then there are negative energies that move in a counterclockwise rotation. Genetically modified food, for example, I think the energy off of that moves in a counterclockwise rotation. I have something here, we call it a tensor ring, it's kind of hard to see, but it's spiraled in a clockwise fashion that has a frequency that passes through, or that spits out of it. I put it around my arm and whatever all the time. And so it flips those frequencies. So I would imagine that having something spiraled like that may have an effect. I also know that the intention has that effect. Everything has an energy signature. You can program, in my view, you can program just about anything, if not anything. And it's going to carry that signature to whatever degree for as long as it's supposed to carry it.
Just like the water, just like Mr.
Just like the water. Yeah. The only thing I will say to that, this is my but, is in the case of like the towers that are programmed specifically to counter all of this stuff and are constantly being upgraded, constantly being changed, and like we have things that have frequencies that spit out too. I don't have them with me. They're out in my garage, plugged into other frequency generators. We call them harmonizers, but they lock onto the HARP network. They're tensor technology. They're like spiraled tensor rings, but I have you can see them on my Instagram page and on my website. But basically, they emit frequencies, and I'll go change the channels all day, like a lot of my friends who have these. And when we see things in the sky, we change the channel. Well, then you can tell they changed the channel, and so it's this constant battle. So I think what you're doing with those is you are programming a channel that is going to carry with it, and I think that'll always be beneficial.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say, like, because I make small pendants too, and you can only put so much metal inside of a pendant, unless you want to have, like, I know some people make Flava Flav size, like, these huge things that I'm just like, oh my God, you're gonna get like a or you're gonna get scurvy from your neck.
But then you have this, which is like, this is like 60 pendants in one, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah, I mean, because a lot of people will write to me and ask me, Mitch, can I get? They want something to combat 5G, and I used to make a lot of pendants. They're very time consuming for me.
They are.
And yeah, you're using like little tweezers, and these molds are just very tiny.
They're like hunched over, and
yeah, exactly. They're beautiful, but I tell people, like, if you're trying to combat, here I'm just going off of what they asked.
Yeah.
If you're trying to combat the 5G, you need a tower buster to put in your purse or in your pocket or in your car, in your home. You need something substantial, and the standard is the tower buster.
If you carry this in your purse, not only are you doing that, but you can like pull this out and like whack them.
There you go.
Yeah.
Beat muggers and parasites.
Right.
But yeah, it's the general consensus with a tower buster. The reason, we use muffin pans to get that hockey puck look. And the reason is because you need about 3 to 4 ounces of material, in order to handle the energy field going around a tower. Like I said, it's kind of, picture it as though it's like a scrubber brush or a little cleanser filter. So as everything passes through, there's enough matter there to restructure that signal. And even with that, I don't want to downplay the power of a tower buster. They're fantastic. Earth pipes, in my view, I've learned this through my project, I'm calling it Earth Pipes Across Arizona. Earth pipes are the bomb. They are just the greatest energy tool of anything somebody who's gifting Orgonite could gift. Yeah.
And is
because
this... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, please go ahead.
Is it just layer with like something coiled inside, or what's? Do you
so
want to
it
give it away?
No, yeah, it's totally fine. Well, I do give those away.
Literally.
No. So it's actually not layered. It doesn't have to be layered, and not all Orgonite does have to be layered. So I'll talk about that right after I talk about this. So the earth pipes are not just a tower buster that's handling the tower frequency on the surface. A lot of these frequencies, if you notice those cables from those towers that are going into the ground, I would tell people to go research Nikola Tesla's wireless energy patents and go look at how the energy was supposedly transferred from tower to tower and through the atmosphere. So like if you had, say, of course these were theories based on his papers, but if you were going to fly an airplane, for example, in between where like 2 towers were positioned, as long as they were connected on the ground and had the current of the Earth's energy field, then they can do what they need to in the atmosphere. As long as you're in that bubble, you can have this wireless energy. Well, it's passing through underneath our feet. This is why earth pipes are so important, because they are bastardizing the energy fields below us as well. And they're going through the waterways and through the ley lines and energy points. And like, I tell people that there is no coincidence that like the Georgia Guidestones, these places that are connected on the same ley lines, if you look up the one that's on the Georgia Guidestones, it's connected to 9/11, the Boston bombing, Sandy Hook, where JFK and Princess Diana allegedly died, the Gulf oil spill, and I forget like a handful of other things, but they're all on these same energy points. And so if you do have anyone, I will say too, if anyone who follows you who's in Georgia, please, I will give you free earth pipes if you take them to the Georgia Guidestones and hammer those
Yeah.
fuckers into the ground. Pardon
Dude,
my French.
I want
So
to do that. I wish I went to
I
Georgia.
anyone who yeah, and I will get, and I'll get, you know what, and I'll even up it and say I will give you a free home pack from my if you go on my website and look at my home pack. So I will give a free
Awesome.
home pack to anybody who's willing to take some stuff I give them and go to the Georgia Guidestones and gift that stupid thing, because the energy signature coming off of that thing is horrific. And so anyway, I know
Yeah.
see, I got to be careful with my tangents, and I'm so sorry
No, we
about
love it.
that.
They're used to me.
Uh,
I'm similar, so you're good.
because now I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, so the layering. So there's a misconception when we make pyramids. Sometimes here is an example of one. I actually made this after a bunch of parents were talking about the schools and the 5G. I was going for, this is what we call, this is the holy hand grenade. So it's got crystals in the corners that all shoot out, that are all wrapped, kind of like this one in the top there. It's a little hard
Coiled
to
around.
see. It's coiled around. And then there's just like crushed up selenite and black tourmaline and stuff in the middle. But I was going for like a candy apple red and a apple green. And I think I coined that. I have to call everything names because for shits and giggles. So I called that the teacher's pet. It was meant to, and I had some teachers who bought them to put in their classrooms because they all got back to school and they're like, Mitch, there's a tower on the school now. What do I do? And so I thought that was a creative way to do that. But the layering is not absolutely necessary. The layering with orgone, with an orgone accumulator, or if you wanted to make like an orgone blanket, one of the very popular things people want to make is an orgone blanket, which will act as an accumulator. And so you're layering those materials because you need to pull and attract and concentrate that energy as it gets closer and closer and closer to the center point of where that energy field is supposed to be harnessed. A lot like the accumulator box where people would sit inside and everything was harnessed inside to their body. I would tell people too, because I get the question a lot about how to make a blanket. Don't be messing around with those blankets or accumulators if you live in areas that are surrounded by cell phone towers and DOR energy, because they don't just accumulate positive energy, they can accumulate negative energy too. And so if you're not careful, you can get sick. It's the difference between, like, because a lot of people think Reich made or has something to do with orgonite. He really doesn't. Orgonite is an orgone generator versus an accumulator, which accumulates the energy, because the energy is all around us. It's already there.
Right.
It's just a matter of transmuting, because energy can neither be created nor destroyed. And so, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying don't do it if you live under the power lines and next to the nuclear power plant.
And
basically.
you haven't already planted some.
Well, I would definitely do what you can to mitigate all the EMF around you. And, if you're going to do certain experiments with things like that, like do what he did. He went to Maine. He went, had his own compound up there, as far away from all of the nuclear testing that was going on back in like the 40s. So anyway, yeah.
There's nowhere left to run though, so here we are.
I mean, really,
and we
yeah,
just have to mitigate it, or reverse, reclaim.
I mean, I have some people ask, is this going to be enough? And for now, it is. I wonder, we see things advancing the way that they are. I see grasping at straws the more that I get into this work. And some friends and we laugh at certain things, try not to get too discouraged. The world is a shit show right now, and especially with like the fires going on right now, they are pushing with every last breath that they have. They are pushing the climate hoax, because they need, just like they got everyone to wear a muzzle, they need all of those same people to now go along with and consent to basically locking down everything and saying, oh, you know what, gas and oil, they're bad, you can't drive anymore. And people will say, oh, okay, I'm doing my part.
And also eat bugs, you stupid slave.
Right. Oh my God.
And they're going to do it.
They are going to do it. They are all going to do it. And if they're not doing that, they're going to eat lab-grown meat that's been, I tell people, when it comes to food, and this is connected to orgone. When you grow things, I highly recommend put your orgonite around your plants, put it around your trees, put it around, you know, just anything that's going to grow, because you're going to change that energy signature around that, because it's being inflicted upon by all these frequencies to not do what it's supposed to. And in the case of, like, I talk about this in various outlets, like the Monsanto stuff is actually connected to, in my view, it's connected to Orgonite, because they're, you know, they have to refile or all their patents have to be updated regularly, because once life energy, I mean, we are all, every life form that exists on this planet or in this universe is always trying to revert back to what it was naturally, what God created. And I don't mean that in an Abrahamic religion type of way. Nature, universe, consciousness, source, whatever you want to call it. And so everything is going to try to revert back to what it is supposed to be. They have done every method possible between the fluoride and the GMOs and the geoengineering and terraforming the planet to try and shut that down. And it doesn't matter what they do. We just keep going and going and going and waking up a little bit more and more each day. And so in the case of GMOs, you know, GMOs are dead food. A lot of people think that they cause cancer and they do all these they do a plethora of bad things. But at the end of the day, the real thing is, the reality behind them is they are genetically, as a genetic code, they have had the essence of life removed from them. So we don't benefit. We can get vitamins and minerals and extend our life by an extra, 2 days. But as far as being a conscious person, being aware of everything, they don't offer any benefit to anything, because they have the life force removed from them.
That's a very good
But
point.
on the flip side is, within 3 generations, they will revert back. As long as you leave them alone, they'll revert back to an heirloom.
Ha!
And so, yeah, so you can use certain tools like this. I mean, I'm obsessed with marigolds, and I've been growing from the same marigold plants for like the last 2-3 years. It's like I'm on like the 10th or 12th seed, I guess, from the same plant. And, you know, I want to get them tested and figure out, like, what do they look like under a microscope, because I'm fairly certain that at this point they're not the same thing that I bought when I bought them. And so anyway, yeah, you use these energy, you clear up this energy. It's why putting orgonite around plants will make it grow faster. It's reacting with the energy field that reacts with our genetic code, our DNA, all those receptors, just like the water. It's everything is like an antenna, which is why they want to shoot you up with whatever. Now they're just trying to speed it up, where like they want to shut it off. They want to mutate it, because if they mutate it, you're not going to be receiving what you're supposed to from source. You're going to be receiving what they want you to receive through the frickin' towers. So another reason we change those frequencies. It's all connected.
It really is all connected. And it obviously has to be, like you've pointed out many times in this episode, and like the audience is really well aware of, that energy, that whatever you want to call it, that suffuses and diffuses through everything in the universe, you know, it flows and it moves and it's everywhere. And so of course it would have to be attached to everything. Literally, it is everything. So it makes sense that it's all interconnected. And I love that point about the seeds and the plants and, you know, reverting back, because I remember being really depressed at one point. Like, they're gonna just end all life because they just want profit or control. Like, this is insane. Like, they don't even see what they're doing to themselves. But, you know, of course life finds a way to be very Lost World about it, or Jurassic Park or whatever.
That's,
you know, like,
I've used that quote because that's what he meant. That is exactly what he meant or what the director meant when they said that line. And it does find a way. And, you know, what's funny is how you just said about, you know, destroying the seeds, destroying life. A lot of people who learn about this, you know, I mentioned this, I think, once in a previous conversation we had about how this is sort of a choose your own adventure thing, where people don't know. They might believe in geoengineering and not orgone, or they believe in the energy, but they don't believe the government would want to wish them harm, or they think it's the government when it's something else. Or they believe it's just God saying, you know, smiting you, and we need to go through 7 years of tribulation, and we're doomed no matter what we do. More ways than that even. It's just, there are so many different ways people interpret this. But in the case of how you say something that wants to destroy life, I will tell you, like, all of this, these towers and the agenda, like, when people talk about the chemtrails, they talk about aluminum, barium, strontium, and all the patents and things. You know, I've talked about those too. When I started doing this, I think 2016-ish, I was spreading misinformation myself, and I have like a few of us who are doing this work. We've all kind of come to these realizations because every day you're learning something new to apply to the day before. But if you look at and if you bust the towers and you observe the sky and you document these things, it doesn't make any sense of what's really going on. And I'll show you. I'm going to actually show you that that chemtrail thing I was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here, let me show you. This is an example. Sorry, one sec here. I'm so terrible with this stuff. Okay. This is a chemtrail breakdown. And is it going to work? So I'm going to rewind this here. So this chemtrail here, this was actually just in April, I think. This is what happens when you remove enough of the electromagnetic field from down on the ground. And you get these just weird, almost like spaghetti noodles that break apart, they snap, they seize. It's, you know, it's hard for people, I think, to see that because they want to think it's aluminum and barium and strontium and all that stuff. We are allowed to see certain stuff on the books, what the government would want us to know, because the government wants us to think they're the end all be all. They want us to think they're the boogeyman. Oh my God, it's so far above that. They don't know shit. The government is stupid and they can't do anything right. And so so trying to explain this to some people, it's like, for me, the easiest way to explain it is when you look at all these agendas, when you look at like I'm going to say it, people are going to rag on me probably for this, but the transgender that is the precursor to transhumanism.
Nobody here is going to rag on you.
Okay, good. Okay, good. It's like,
we're open-minded here. We even have some trans and gay people in the community too, and they're still like, yeah, the agenda is ridiculous.
I mean, it's there's something. Okay, well, so in addition to that, like the stuff with the children and the inversion perversion of this world, and what they do to the food and to the water and what they're doing to terraform the planet. Like Wilhelm Reich wrote, I'll show you a visual aid, but I talk about this book all the time, Contact with Space. If you're going to get a book by Wilhelm Reich, get that one, because that is going to talk to you, or that's going to tell you all about the terraforming of the planet and how deserts are not natural. I know they're not natural. I know this is all bullshit with these fires. And I believe that we actually live in a very high energy oasis from one point in time, and with trees that were probably reaching quite far into the sky. And so when you think about all these agendas together, the one thing they have in common, they're all anti-human and anti-life. And it's like, okay, so we're probably not dealing with something that is human life.
Although humans are serving that agenda because they're ridiculous and broken, but they're not the originator. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I mentioned this once. I think it was on Chance's podcast. I mentioned this about the Georgia Guidestones. And I've had this theory for a while. I know it's just a theory. Some people hate that word, but I have a lot of theories and I run with a lot of them because of evidence I've seen. And I'm fairly convinced now that the 500 million humans that they want to keep humanity up to 500 million or down to 500 million, with everything else they lie about that they put in plain sight, what I'm thinking is we are already there. And we have human beings on this planet, and then we have people. And people are a physical body that is overrun with either artificial intelligence, some kind of parasitic entity, or like just all the programming, the fake, the artificial fake.
Which connects with the straw man shit too.
It's exactly. Yeah. And it's like and maybe it's something we were all born with, maybe it's something we gravitated to, maybe the straw man stuff is like we kind of choose a path and we will slowly we'll become one or the other. Right now people are becoming that by accepting the poison dart. That's what I think.
Yeah.
And so it's just like there is an agenda that is based on this energy, that is based on consciousness, that is anti-life. Something hates us and wants to control us. And I know it's dark for a lot of people, and here around Sedona especially. Good God, like I'm like, get the hell over it,
They can't even
man.
accept that. They're like, no,
Yeah,
that's just a part of yourself. You haven't healed yet. I'm like, well, that allows
exactly.
them in, but that's
I'm
not where it's
projecting.
coming from.
Yeah, I'm projecting. I'm
Yeah.
projecting. Yeah, no, it's like, yeah, the best way to handle stuff like this is to obviously suppress all the traumas, and that'll work out really well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's this agenda that I try to explain to people. Like, if you just look at everything on an it's a puzzle. And maybe I've beat this dead horse with this analogy, but the puzzle is, you've got this jigsaw puzzle that explains, it's on the box. It says this, this is what the picture's supposed to look like, and that picture is what the world is. But as you start flipping over these pieces one by one, you realize, like, the puzzle, it's not looking like what's on the box. And then you realize every time you flip over a piece, there's like two new pieces too. So you're never getting to the end of it, but you're absolutely certain that is not what is depicted on that box. And so, there's a lot of people that believe what's on that box. And I think those, I would call them people or persons. I'm at a point in my life with, I bust my hump here trying to bust towers, and I see tons of people here who are like, oh, good job, make it rain, or it starts to rain, and they're like, oh, Mitch, bravo, or it doesn't rain, and they're like, oh, Mitch, we're doomed. And I just sit there like, God, get off your ass and help me,
Yeah, I
for
was
God's
gonna say,
sakes,
do any of them do anything about it?
They
I
don't.
hate
I
that
mean,
attitude.
I have people, and actually, if I can, I want to take a quick second here. I want to acknowledge a couple of
Yeah,
people.
I love that.
So I've been working on this project, and I would love for anybody watching this to go to my website. On the top of my page, there's a tab that says Orgone Energy, and from that, there is a drop down that says Restore the Desert Project. That page, Restore the Desert Project, it highlights two of my projects. One of those projects was gifting chembusters, the big guns with the copper pipes, gifting those last summer all over the state of Arizona. It costs a fortune to do it, so I want to brag about it and just say, please go read and learn about it and see what this stuff is doing. It was sort of when I heard Joe Biden campaigning, and he said Americans were in for a dark winter, I immediately was like, here we go. And I knew that the drought was coming this year. I knew that when the COVIDiacy ran out, like that, the climate crisis was up next. I saw Greta being put front and center. So it was like, okay, I got to get these chembusters out. And then this by the time 2021 hit, and I was fairly certain that Orange Man Bad was not going to be the president, then I started this other project because I knew that, like, one of these parties is going to push the climate agenda much faster than the other. And it was kind of like, how long are they playing this out? And it's like, oh, they're running out of time. So I actually have this opinion that if anybody, like, the reason one of them won is, I think, because they're running out of time and they need to push the agenda faster, and you can push it faster with one party than the other. But this climate agenda was being pushed so fast. I was like, okay, it's time to bury an earth pipe every square inch of Arizona. So I started doing this project, Earth Pipes Across Arizona, where I just invested everything I had, and I just spent weeks preparing earth pipes and cutting, I don't know how many of those things, and prepping them and going out into the desert with my friends. We went out on Tuesdays. We called it Tuesday Tower Busting. And we went out, we've been going out since we got here 2.5 years ago. We go out to different cities and we gift stuff. But again, because of the 5G stuff during the COVIDiacy, we kind of had to speed that up. And so anyway, I put together these two projects, and I'm still working on the earth pipe one, and I've been sending a ton of these things to different people all around the state. So in, like, the longest roundabout way of saying that, I just want to thank a few of the people. So if they're watching this, I've got my friend John down in Phoenix, who is just like a powerhouse, who jumped in as soon as I sent some stuff to him. He was just like very intuitive, and he's a prime example of how I tell people, get creative with this stuff, because people will overthink it, and they'll ask me, like, how do I do this? Does it have to be buried 2 inches under the ground or 1 inch under the ground? Is it upset this way or that way? Will it matter if I do it on a Friday evening at 6 p.m.? Like, it's just not overthinking it. And then my friend Garrett, my friend Trent, and they're down in Mesa and Buckeye. My friend Evelyn and my friend Susan over in, well, she's in Buckeye too, but my friend Susan over in Lake Havasu. I just made a post the other day telling people, if you live in Arizona, reach out to me. I had a few come out. So there's just these different people that are doing things. Oh, and my friend Beatrice down in Yuma, who took out one of those mother towers, the Nexrads. People are taking out these Nexrads,
Yeah.
and every time they do, our temperature goes down, and the clouds start to form again. And they come out and they zap the sky and they do whatever and they try to compete because it's a never-ending battle. But a lot of these people, we're trying to keep up, and I'm trying to feed them boxes and boxes and boxes of these things as quickly as I can, because if you when you do this work and you see the results, like, it becomes evident. You can't avoid. It's true. This is true. Like, it just, get over it. It's true. So yeah, bus towers and whatever. And if I'm forgetting anybody, because I'm all over the place, I apologize. But these are just a handful of people who in the last few months have been helping me. And my friend Trent too. I think I said his name, but just he really surprised me because if you're out gifting, this is a tip for some people. If you're out gifting earth pipes, this kid, it's one of the smartest things I'd heard. He texted me one night. He's like, Mitch, I took a drill with a 1-inch drill bit because Arizona is very rocky. It's hard to bury this stuff with a hammer or a shovel. And he's like, oh yeah, I just like drill into the ground, like zzz, down in, hits the thing down, covers it up, walks away. So he's like stealth gifting. So it was just kind of like it was just really nice to see, like, a lot of these people have stepped up to help and are just like, there's just, it's not just me when I say, like, I'm busting towers. Like, there are a lot of people that are helping now. It needs to be more. It always needs to be more. Everybody needs to be putting something, go make a pan of tower busters and go gift your neighborhood, or start with your neighborhood, start with your community, work your way outward. Because I think if everybody out there just made like one pan, a dozen tower busters, and you go put that around 4 or 5 towers, it will make such a world of difference so fast. And it'll be a lot easier to prove it to other naysayers and skeptics who are just kind of thinking, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? So yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you to all those people that you mentioned, and thank you to all that you do. And I know, like you said, you're gifting this stuff left and right, and it's not free. And so if people want to support your work, I'm sure they can go purchase the actual orgone that you've made that's in your shop there on the site that I've shared some links to and are under the video too for people who don't know. But they could also donate, right? How do we donate to you?
So I'm really glad you asked that, because it's like my inner voice, and I'm constantly battling it. Because Doncroft, who created this movement, always said, like, he was very skeptical about like making money on things like orgonite because of the tool and how it's used to help humanity. So I do sell some things in my shop because like everyone else, I have a matrix job, or most people, I have a matrix job, and it doesn't foot the bill. So I sell things to help support that.
Right.
So you can buy the nicer stuff or whatever. I'm having a little trouble lately keeping anything in there because I don't sell very much. And I'm currently so swamped just trying to I want to get the fires over. I want to handle this problem because of the climate crisis,
right?
Or the manufactured climate crisis. But if people, I tell people, if you live in Arizona, if you want a box of these, or if you want to get some earth pipes, I'm happy to share. I'm happy to gift them. But I would ask, like, if you're in the area, if you live in the state and you want to help and you want to speed things up, I will not say no to any kind of a contribution, because it is a lot. It is a lot mentally, physically.
You're not like making money and getting rich off of it. You're just trying to get money to make more and get it out there. That's very different. Yeah.
I joke with people that this is the absolute worst business decision ever, because it's you don't make money doing this. You hemorrhage it. And so yeah, no, anything. I should give out a little thank you. There's an individual who, she's in, two of them actually. One's in Idaho and one's in California. But I just want to say, like, a huge thank you, that if you see the weather shifting in Arizona right now, you can also thank 2 people. Their names are Joanna and Carol.
Thank you, Joanna and Carol.
Yeah, they're fantastic people. They see what I'm doing. They love it. They're just like, they get a kick out of seeing the reactions and hearing my take on what's going on. and also hearing me clarify a lot of the misinformation or disinformation about, again, like, this is about busting the frequency fence. It's not just about helping the juju vibes of whatever, or, like, it just, yeah, there's just so much more to this that helps the collective. And so I'm eternally thankful to the few individuals out there who have whoever saw what I was doing, and they were just like, let me help you out a little. And I'm like, I can't say thank you enough.
So how do we donate?
Sorry, yeah, I'm terrible. So on my website, it's fairly easy. Just there's an about page. It has this tab drop down that says make a donation if you want. I'm terrible. So I don't want to be a hypocrite with EMF devices. So I do have a PayPal if you want to send anything that way. I started a Venmo because somebody asked me to. Or I think there's also a Zelle. I'm also
Cash
old
App.
school.
Yeah.
I'm also old school. If you want to write a check, I'm also easy to get a hold of. My contact information is on the website. I cannot count how many times and hours, days, weeks I have been on the phone with people, parents, uh, kids, whatever. I mean, well, not really kids, but like parents and college students, and like just people that are like at a loss trying to figure out a solution, and trying to tell them, like, you know, do this, put together groups, or find people and connect people that are interested in doing this, who live in the same area. I had a couple of those I set up today too. So if you benefit from my work here in Arizona, or if I've ever, I give away free stuff all the time. It's in, I think, every package I've ever sent out. But if you benefit from any of that and you want to support it, please do, because I just want nothing more than to, start with Healing Arizona, so I can venture out then beyond that. And, just the Southwest needs help. The Southwest is, it's not the end of the world. And I wouldn't say, don't believe what the media is saying, because I think it's a huge exaggeration. But we need help. And there are a lot of places that have a lot of people gifting that don't actually need that many people gifting anymore. If you're in Texas, please actually come to Arizona.
Yeah.
I would love it because Texas is now underwater. There's a lot going on there. I know several people who are there that are just powerhouses with this stuff. And so Arizona, it's been very difficult to find other people. If I'm not the one with the cattle prod getting them to do it, it's very few and far between. So anyway, if you can go to my website, go to the shop, look at my work. I also have instructions how to build this stuff.
That's what I wanted to get to next too.
So
people know that
even
the chem busters, right?
Yeah, the tower busters, they're fairly simple. The chem busters are a lot more work, but I have very detailed instructions, and I think I have 3 different modifications of the chem buster. Some are easier than others. And also, I try my best to make myself available to answer. I answer a lot of questions. And so, I know from a business standpoint, someone would say that's your terrible advice, Mitch, but I will teach you how to make this because that's what I prefer.
Right.
I want other people doing this.
And then they can teach other people, and then they can teach. If we were all doing this, then we would all have our shoulders.
Yes, we'll all hold hands, and the children will sing, and the towers will be dead.
Yes.
And the matrix will crumble. So
the love and the light will flow.
Just barfing out love and light left and right.
Well, you're inspiring me to specifically make these. I'm so sorry, I forgot what this one's called.
Earth pipe.
An earth pipe. The earth pipes, because I was gonna make some longer, thinner, this sort of same structure, but I couldn't find a mold. But you've inspired me, because I can use anything like this metal pipe, right?
Yeah. And you know what? So I actually want to say to anyone who lives in a concrete jungle, one of the tricks we did when we lived in Chicago was because there's a lot of, obviously, concrete, you can't always dig a hole or hammer the pipe in. But one thing there seemed to not be a shortage of was chain link fences. Every neighborhood all over the place. And so you walk around in the middle of the night and you take a hammer and you pop off the top of the fence post, and you can drop things down there. And I know some people might be rolling your eyes or whatever, but you can make those things by using either toilet paper or paper towel rolls instead. Just cap and end with tape and make your orgonite. And then so you mix together an orgonite mix of half resin, half metal. If use powders, make a sludge. Basically, I have this thing I call the milkshake method. It should be about the consistency of like a really thick milkshake, and you dump it in, and then you drop in a crystal. With an earth pipe, you use crystal points. So just get a crystal point, and you drop it in, and then once it hardens and is done, you can just drop that down into that post, but you want to drop it down so that the crystal is facing the direction down into the ground.
Okay.
That's why like the earth pipe, you bury the open end there, so the tape end is the top, the tape side is the top, and the open end is what makes contact with the ground. So the crystals that are in that are facing downward right now. There's 3 crystal points wrapped in copper wire. And so you don't have to add 3, you can add 1. And like I said, it can be as small as like a little toilet paper roll. And then just peel it off when you're done and drop it into, it doesn't even have to be just fence posts, but that is an easy way to convert a fence post that is already 6 to 12 inches in the ground. It will convert it into an earth pipe. And I used to walk around the city doing that, and it was interesting to see reactions with cumulus clouds in the sky, or cirrus clouds in the sky, the cauliflower just forming, because you get these bursts. It's messing up the energy field that's running underneath of these neighborhoods that are just jam-packed with millions of devices. And so yeah, when you can't, it's stealth gifting is what it is. So I used to also put magnets in things and stick them. I used to just walk up to the Sears Tower. I'd make organite pucks that were the same color, the same black color as the tower, and just stick them because they just look like a metallic button or like a metallic just indentation of the building. And I'd go on. I worked down there for 7 years. I'd walk around all the time, and I'd see organite down in the Chicago Loop that was there for a very long time, and just millions of tourists walk right by. They never see it.
That's so cool.
So yeah, it's people aren't gonna see. People ask me like, aren't you worried, or like, how do you gift or whatever? I've been very slow to finishing a gifting tutorial that outlines like how to identify targets. And because they are disguising a lot of the towers, and like how do you decide, like yesterday, an example of gifting, we wanted to put earth pipes basically every mile from Flag to Payson. And so it's, one person driving, and you pull over at every pull out, or every, we'll improvise and say it's a pull out, I guess, but you pull off and you get out of the car, and you got 30 seconds to bury something, get back in the car and get going. People don't pay attention to a lot. We live in the world where, I learned in Chicago how little people pay attention to stuff. So if you want to get into gifting and you're worried about the voices in your head that are saying like somebody's watching, they're not. So there's just a lot more freedom with it. And once you start doing the work, you're going to get very intuitive. Like my friend who did, was like, oh, I can bury this in half the time with a drill by just drilling down into the rock, or using magnets, or disguising things, the toilet paper roll in the tubes or in the fence posts. It's like you're gonna figure it out. I think it's gonna come to you intuitively, because a lot of this, it's just whispers from source saying, okay, you're helping me out, let me help you out. And as far as being protected, there's a lot of weird stuff that happens, but as long as you keep you can be frustrated. I get frustrated all the time. I get downright pissed off some of the times, because it's not so much in the act of gifting, but I think it's the aftermath of like today I had like 4 or 5 people. I'll just say like, Mitch, send me free shit. And I'm just kind of like, no, blocked. Like, I don't want to deal. I'm just like, I don't want to deal with certain things or people that are just kind of ungrateful. But with that said, keep your vibration a certain height. Just stay focused, and like you're taking care of Mother Nature. It's gonna take care of you. So there's really not, the voices in your head about what might happen are not where I have the last 6 years of dealing with this. Don't listen to them, because it's not it's the parasitic stuff. It's the psychic attacks, and yeah.
And you can ask Source for help with those too. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, we both get attacked for maybe slightly different reasons, but they're basically the same reason in the end, right?
Yep. Exactly.
And yeah, I do think that that's a really good tip for people, because I think people can be dissuaded because of some fear of like, well, what if I start being a target? And like, well, newsflash, we all already are targets, so you may as well choose now to like do something about it.
wish I would have. I forgot it, and it's on the other side of the house. But I have this thing we call a sucker punch. A sucker punch is a crystal device that you use like a little battery pack that's attached to a 15 hertz generator that'll pulse and shock it 15 times a second.
Wow.
And it's led into a what we call a Mobius coil that goes around. It's just a special knot that goes around the quartz. When you turn it on, it creates a scalar wave field that's very chaotic, and it's not like the biggest energy field, but it'll cover your aura. And it's in the Orgone community, it's known as a cloaking device. So we use those when if you're going to go out and like gift a ton of stuff, and you're going to be, you're doing energetic work, you're fighting the parasitic world order, for lack of a better word. So like it's good to have a little extra protection. And some people, they might hear it and think, oh God, psychic attacks, like whatever. But it's like, I'm telling you, they're
experienced
real.
it yet then.
Yeah, exactly. So there's pushback. There's always pushback.
Right.
I've had very weird things, and I know I don't want to ramble on for too long. I don't know how pressed we are for time, but if
tell us.
Well, glad. Okay, so one example was getting shut down by the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
Wow.
Temporarily, and I wasn't the only one. There were a few people, and I noticed they all had one thing in common: is they were making orgonite correctly. And they said it was through my Etsy shop. They notified Etsy that the devices, I forget exactly. I have the letter somewhere. I should put it on my website. But it basically, they were saying that the tools or the devices that were being sold had been shown to have some sort of impact on radioactivity. And what they don't talk about, and this is why, again, get contact with space and learn about the Oraner experiment by Wilhelm Reich. That's Oranur, the Oraner experiment. It's essentially talking about nuclear energy and orgone energy and how they work together. I believe, I will say believe, and go with that, is I believe that in a way orgone energy can neutralize not just the EMF and these energy fields, but in a sense radioactivity. So it's like radiation, nuclear radiation. There is a connection between the two. It's a little more complicated than that, but in this experiment that he did that had to do with radium, and I hope my friend Carol's watching this. We talk about this now, the radium. Chance and I talked about this too. There's a misconception on radioactivity and nuclear energy. When you apply orgone field, when you apply orgone energy to radioactive elements, they become agitated, and vice versa. And I'm still working on it. I referenced it in a previous talk, but I have some uranium that very minuscule, but I'm working on agitating this to figure out basically not infinite, but free energy, basically. And I believe that's what Wilhelm Reich was working on, what he kind of figured out because he put radium inside of his orgone accumulators. All kinds of weird things happened with these reactions. The government shut him down. A lot of people, they talk about how Wilhelm Reich got shut down for curing cancer and all these other things with his box. That's another way to know when somebody doesn't really know what they're talking about. It's so much deeper than that. They shut him down because he figured out the truth about nuclear activity, about radiation and nuclear energy. And then he died before he, I think, finished the connecting the dots. But I do believe that you can apply an orgone field, and that field is around us all the time. It's one reason why I actually think there will never be a nuclear bomb that ever goes off in this world. I think maybe it happened before. I don't know. In 1 year they made us believe that there's no such thing as an immune system, so God knows what they've done to the rest of the history timeline.
Right.
But if anything ever went off, I have a feeling they've never set anything off again because they know what would happen. And I think they wouldn't like it because of the healthy energy field that is surrounding this realm as well. And so yeah, anyway, definitely get the book. If you're interested in orgone energy, don't just start making orgonite. Get contact with space and read it and learn a little bit about Wilhelm Reich, because I think even though he didn't make it, he would see orgonite today and be like, what is this? But it's based on creating that same environment. So
he's the father of the science.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I apologize if I think did I answer that question?
You did tell us the weird thing, which was that the nuclear
Oh
radiation, the
yeah,
community
that was one. I
committee.
mean, and I mean, I've had things where I'm outside. I've had encounters. I've watched things fall out of the sky, just like he talks about in that book. When you aim the chembuster, I mean, come to the desert. I mean, it's crystal clear here. Funny enough, it's actually crystal clear at night, and you can see stars. Right now, I think it's not dark enough yet. But yesterday, so just around 4 o'clock, and I go to my Instagram. I'll tell this to people. Go to my Instagram and look up the stories I posted or the post that I posted today. They're all about yesterday and reactions in the sky when we busted this Nexrad tower. The smoke from these fires, it is most potent or thick at sunrise and sunset, just like the DOR that blocks the sunrise and sunset. And then it magically disappears for the rest of the day, but then comes back around 4 o'clock. Today it didn't. There were a lot of big clouds in the sky forming, lots of huge puffy cauliflower clouds, and there was magically no haze. Well, there wasn't that haze because they couldn't establish enough of an ionized environment to make it all hazy and to make the smoke linger. The earth is constantly cleaning itself, and I think a lot of people watching this already know this. So it's constantly going to be cleaning up whatever it is that gets thrown their way. So when you ionize the environment, you slow down that reaction and you have this excess pollution that makes all the other pollution stick to it instead of filtering out through the ground. And like a lot of people talk about the pollution getting launched up into space or into the sky. I don't know so much about that because I'm fairly convinced there's some sort of a protective barrier. Not to get into that conversation, because Wilhelm Reich actually believed that the world was round in his book. I do believe that a lot of what we see in the sky is actually a nuclear and orgone. It's a nuclear reaction taking place in the galactic orgone belt, and so this is why I don't believe anymore about, or I don't align with the aluminum, barium, and strontium argument, and why those trails break apart, why the haze will disappear. And it's like, well, where does all this stuff go?
Yeah.
It's energy fields. That's why. And it's these things are cutting through this barrier or whatever it is that's up there. I believe in the way he saw it too. He saw chemtrails too, but they weren't chemtrails. They weren't planes. What we see, I think, is depicted as planes. And it's a reaction. It's some sort of energetic reaction, which is why it can be turned on and it can be turned off.
Yeah.
So when they tell you that jet propulsion will take you to the moon, I think that's a batch of bullshit. But if you can go to the moon, if the moon is a thing to do like that, I don't actually think that.
Yeah.
But however they would do it, I think is multidimensional or interdimensional. It's some sort of, like, this energy is multidimensional. And it's a whole can of worms, and I don't want to ramble about too many things I don't know enough about, but it's just, the more you learn about this, it's like, wow, wait a minute, is this like this? Like my friend and I, the one in Alabama, and I were talking recently about cell phone towers possibly being energy portals, and that what we're essentially doing, not just like we're flipping the signature, but it's like, what if these are portals that the parasites, we call them parasites, that they are using as their mode of transportation, and we're shutting the portal literally. And then it brought in this whole topic of I forget the book, The Golden Compass, I think. Yeah. She was telling, I haven't read it yet, and I'm sorry, I know she's watching this, but I will get around to it eventually. But she says, like, read The Golden Compass. Yeah. So I would tell that to other people. I guess you might start connecting some dots with these energy things, like, even though you're like, what, chemtrails? And it's like, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, well, that's fascinating because I have never heard that before, and I really makes so much sense to me. And I think a lot of people in this community will also understand that that interdimensional aspect, and these entities and energies that are really highly intelligent and can look any way they want, right? And I've seen things that I would never be able to explain otherwise, and so it makes sense to me that they'd be able to make this seem like a plane spewing shit when actually it's whatever, who knows. I don't even know if we could describe it accurately, but your description was pretty good. So that makes a lot of sense to me. And the portal thing too, you know, like I have noticed throughout my life, we've talked many times on this show about electronics seeming to be a very easy portal for these energies and entities to come through and control and manipulate, more so than anything else, even though they can also come through other things, especially people who choose to inject themselves with experimental medication, I would imagine. But that if that's a portal in itself, like this computer and this, then not mine, but you know, these things, then why wouldn't the tower itself be even more of a portal, even more of like a centralized high energy wide highway for these things to travel through?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I will, just for anybody watching this, something to keep in mind. Yes, there are government patents, there are projects, there is always experimentation. They've always experimented on us. And so to some degree there are pollutants, to some degree there are different toxins that they're putting in the atmosphere. The one thing I will say about the toxins coming out of the plane is, like, there was a movie, everyone's maybe heard of this. It's called What in the World Are They Spraying?
Yeah.
And then there was another one called Why in the World Are They Spraying?
Right.
There was supposed to be a third movie that was cut before it was produced, and I know that the person making the movie, I believe they got a chunk of cash and ran away with the funding. And then they made a very questionable thing called something gray, unconventional, or gray, something with the word gray, unconventional gray skies, or unconventional gray, I think is what it was called. And I thought it was very interesting how, and I think in the title, it was capitalized UN, unconventional. And I felt like they were insinuating, and this is hearsay, I'm just whatever going off of what I feel. But it was just interesting that there's always been this talk about the aluminum, barium, and strontium.
Yeah.
Nobody has ever gone up there. Have you or I gone up there and sampled this as it's coming out of a plane?
No.
No. And we get these people like, and I would call her a government shill, and I will stamp that. I put it on my website and stamp it. Her name's Kristen Megan. She's a popular one for the Chemtrail Brigade. And these people, I would always say, take anything anyone from the government is saying with a grain of salt, because you are told what to think, and you are also told what to oppose. It's controlled opposition. Whether they maybe they mean well, but keep in mind that everything is parasitic influence. And if you go to some of these people that are in these movies, that are interviewed in these movies, they will run, a lot of them will run away from you when you try to talk to them about a solution. And one, I call him, he's the poster child. His name, I call him Doomsday Dane. And his name, Dane Wigington of geoengineeringwatch.org.
Oh, yeah.
So he is a manifester, in my view, he is a manifester of negative energy and fear porn. He puts up billboards around California that say you're being sprayed like a bug. There's never a solution. And there was an organ worker in California who she talks about, her name's Sharon. She has a website called The Chembo, and she kind of got me into this. And she was talking about an episode where she and her partner went to one of their events and they were going to talk about this. They were like, hey, we'd like to distribute a couple flyers and talk about this solution. And their response was, if you show up, we'll call the police. And they showed up and they were escorted out. And it's like, well, why don't you want to talk about any of these solutions?
Yeah.
What's the problem?
Yeah.
And then you start doing more digging and you find that a lot of people are connected to government contracts and private funding. And I think that Dane even said, this is hearsay, I'm saying what someone else now told me. So allegedly,
Disclaimer.
I strongly use this word,
Right.
disclaimer. But he had allegedly said, like, he couldn't talk about it with them because he was going to lose, he was risking losing some of his funding. I followed him for a very long time, and there was never a solution. I always felt really just guilty and bad and terrified.
Yeah.
And I'm much more vocal about this now. And some people will say, Mitch, you're being mean. I disagree strongly.
No, you're being
the
honest.
reason the reason is because ever since the interview I did with Chance, and this is from one person specifically, and I know I think he's watching. I won't say his name, but there was a young man who contacted me in email, and he basically was talked down off the ledge. And he said it was the most heartbreaking message I think I'd ever gotten, that really just the fear he had, that he was so terrified and had thought there was never a solution and was scared to death. And he saw that podcast and he was just like, I have hope. And he's like, for the first time in my life, I'm not terrified of chemtrails or 5G.
I'm gonna cry.
And so I called him, and he it was very emotional, because like he was like, I'm gonna cry. And no, I mean, well, I'm not right now. He said, I'm gonna cry. And then I wanted to cry, because it was just very, it was like, oh my God, this is what's happening from these fear porn people.
Yeah.
And I will not tolerate it anymore, because it was just like, this idea of hopelessness is feeding the collective energy bubble that is part of that energy bubble up in the sky, and being emitted from those towers.
Yeah.
So it's like, I have no shits to give about people's feelings anymore when they spread all this crap and they don't want to offer a solution. And it doesn't even go for just geoengineering. I mean, it goes for anything.
Yeah.
Anything. Because we are at a point, we all know this, that the collective consciousness, the collective energy, it's not just foo-foo to say, or woo-woo to say it. It really is true that there is a collective energy. And sometimes I need to practice more of what I preach, because sometimes it's easier to tell people this, and I'm like, Mitch, you should remember that yourself. On days where I'm discouraged, where I see a really bad fire, or I get turned away by the cops on the road, and it's like, shit, that's the way we wanted to go on that road. They're gonna block all the roads, and we're not gonna be able to gift the towers. And it's like, it's really mentally draining. But at the end of the day, it's like, enough with you people. Like, you literally run away when we try to tell you there is something you can do about this. And it's the 11th hour and 59th minute. Get to work,
No, that's a beautiful message, and I love that. And I think it's not mean to be honest, and a lot of people, we need to be called to action, and we need a lot of people to be called to task, and to take responsibility for some of that, because it is. And I'm the same. I have bad days. Even today was like, I did this beautiful meditation. It was fantastic with everybody, and then right after that, I was like, just pissed off, and I was like, what? I knew I was being like attacked, and you have to work really hard, and it is really draining sometimes, and there's not a lot of people supporting. And so it's that's even more draining. I'm sure you experienced that too. But it's those things like that guy that you got that message from, right? Or people who then suddenly like give a donation, or people who are like, I'm inspired now, I'm going to start doing this and that keep it sort of going. And so there's another call to action for people. If you appreciate, Mitch and what he's doing, and all of this work and information, then go do something. Give a little donation, buy a little something from the shop, or start learning to do this yourself and share a little word of encouragement. People also do this, and maybe you get this too. People are like, oh, you probably hear this all the time, but I really love your show and it's really like helped me. I'm like, no, I hear that like once a month or less. Like, no one tells you that. Please tell us more, because even that will help so much sometimes.
It really does. And the world likes to air its grievances, and I'm glad you said that way. I know where I don't want to take too much time. Just, I will tell people, if you're watching this, I'm at a point in this journey for my work. I don't want to hear anyone complaining about the sky anymore.
Yeah,
seriously. I get so many messages from people bitching about chemtrails,
they're
especially
like,
people here.
I'm like, I know.
Yeah. If you send me, and I'll be honest, people send me messages now. I used to spend so much time, every single message, and I mean, like I said, I'd be on the phone for hours with people, and it never resulted in anything that would benefit me for my work or help me out. I just ended up burning all this time that was precious. And so I will just say, like, I'm at a point where if they send me something without any personal context, even something like, I saw this, I thought of you, what's your opinion?
Right.
They won't even say that. It's like, if you send stuff like that, I'm done with it. I'm not looking at it. And if you talk about the sky, it's like, I don't care. I had somebody today who simply said, after I talked about all the earth pipes from yesterday, and they said, hey, if you've got anything to spare, send it here to me in North Carolina. And I'm like, first of all, it's like, go to my website where I highlight, I overdo it when I highlight it, but it's like, go to my website, look at my project. I'm helping Arizona. And on top of that, it's just like, why don't you take an active role? I will teach you how to do this, but it's like, no, so it's stuff like that that's discouraging. It gets weighed. Fortunately, there are a lot of positives, and the people you change, and the people who have positive experiences, or they say nice things like, I got this from you and this happened. I had this woman, I'll give her a shout out too before I run you out the clock, but I just want to say, like, there's a woman in I think Costa Mesa. Her name's Lauren, And she recently listened to two very important posts that I did on Instagram. And the first one was about earth pipes. And so she got some earth pipes. She bought quite a few and buried them around her area. And then I had advice where I don't make chem busters to sell because they're so time consuming, but I know a guy. His name's Andy, and he has a website called CT Busters. That's CharlieTomBusters.com. And you can get a fairly inexpensive chem buster. I want the world to please go get a chem buster for your home. And so I recommended that. I said, go, you know, like I saw what was coming. I saw what was happening with her in California and me here. And I just said, you know, do this. And she did. And she wrote me a couple days ago and she's like, oh my God, Mitch, like it not only rained, it rained only on our house. And she's like, I don't get, like, she's just like, this is the weirdest thing. And I'm like, there's no such thing as that with this. And but she just said like all these positives about what she was seeing, that the energy was different, that the field around her was improving, and the sky looked different. And she's like, we still see chemtrails and whatever, but she's like, it rained, and she's like, you could see the definitive line even. And I'm not saying that'll happen to everybody.
Right.
It's like she trusted it, and she had this positive experience with it, and it's like so yeah, stuff like that. I just it's encouraging, it's rewarding. Busting towers it can be fun too. It's not just stressful. I mean, it's nice to, you know, kick some parasitic ass and, you know,
and do your part. And honestly, even creating things like you can make this color, different colors, different shapes, different whatever. And
mica pigments. If anybody's wondering, it's mica powder. That's all it is.
Which is little quartz, crushed up quartz. So, and we'll start to wind down. And so I just have a few more questions from you. One is, what is your best hope, your highest vision of what happens from here?
My highest hope is what I think has already happened and is continuing to become more pronounced. And that is that we are on two timelines. And you have an option. And some people will say there's infinite. No, I think there's two timelines, and we've all made a choice between the artificial and the natural. And I'm going on the natural. And I hope other people do too. We all know that they won't, and everyone makes a choice, but I believe, or I truly feel in my heart that that's the direction we're going. I am hopeful, albeit discouraged at times, but I think it's just going to become more and more pronounced, and we're going to learn fairly quickly the fruits of our labor and you know, the rewards of all the work we did. You know, what did you do? I always tell people, like, I couldn't be any less interested in celebrityism, or famous people, whatever. It's like, I want to know, what have you done for humanity? And if the answer to that is I'm not sure, then it's like, come back later when you have. Otherwise, I don't care. So I feel like those are all the humans that are going on this trajectory, and then you've got all the people and the persons that are unfortunately going to make their own choice. So that's what I see. I'm hopeful for the place I'm going, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I love that vision. I love that hope, and I love that distinction between humans and people or persons, because it's really effective. And, you know, we say NPC, and I'm like, I don't know if they're totally lost, but they did definitely choose, right? And your consciousness and your intention and your choices have an effect. That's what karma means, right? Cause and effect. You chose that. Sorry. I love that vision. And I'm the same, right? Like, people who are full of ego and like celebrity and whatever, they don't tend to like me because I just treat them like a normal person, and they're confused about that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I have enough self-esteem that I don't really give a shit who you think you are. Like you said, like, what kind of person are you, right? And like, what substance are you bringing? And like, that's all that really matters. I could care less what your like status symbols are. So that's beautiful too. We're on the same page. I think that's a very natural way to look at things. And what, you know, do you want to share with people? We've shared your site a couple times. Is there anything else you want to invite people to look at or to do?
You know, I get, you know what, I sadly, I think I can't, other than to just say, like, go to the website and really focus on what it is I'm doing in Arizona, because that's what I want to really hammer home. Because I want someone in New Mexico to do this, and Nevada and Utah, and there are some people that are doing that. I have friends in those places that are getting into this, or you know, they're normal gifters. I have a friend, I think, just going from like Salt Lake City up to Idaho or whatever, drawing a line of earth pipes, and he's going, I think, this week or something. And so
That's rad.
anyway, just I want all these people to be doing these things. And so I'm so sorry because I lost track of the question.
Oh, the
I'm so terrible.
sites or what you want people to do
just,
or come to or see.
Yeah,
or, I think you've already said it, but
yeah, just to, you know, visit my website. You can go on social media. I purposefully keep my social media on private because it has to this day successfully tricked some Al Gore rhythm, and it helps keep me from because I know that they actually, you know, this comes as a shock to some people, but they delete certain people specifically to get people to follow those people because they're like, oh, they deleted them.
I try to tell people that too. I'm like, this gives them more clout, actually.
This is this is why I've been so vocal about a certain somebody. You have to go to my social media and see these people who they delete something, they get an account deleted, and then the next day they got 50,000 people again, and it's like